Song of Primigenia, Chapter 7, The Battle of Crimson Lake Village. And we are in Ken's point of view. It felt like someone had shoved a handful of snow into Ken's mouth. The news from the injured woman chilled him to the bone. He was careful as he moved her to the side of the road, being mindful of her injuries and bandages as he did. Once he had settled her down, he began to dig for the chain shirt from his pack. "Don't worry, ma'am," Ken assured her as he pulled the protective garment and one of the undershirts out. "We'll go and check on your people." Nami came into his field of view, running some beeswax over her bowstring. Her luminous sapphire eyes were glittering with anger as she strung the bow. "Guardians, help whoever is responsible. Can you tell us anything about the attack? Even the smallest details might help." The hurting woman, who looked so small, clutched Ken's shoulder and seemed to be trying to steady herself. "Monsters," she finally managed to choke out. "These large, dog-like beasts came out of the forest. Their fur was inky black, and they were bigger than our guard dogs. I was on the outskirts of the town and thought I could run and get help while the others took shelter. I didn't count on another just appearing. A regular wolf came out of the forest and started to change right before my eyes. Then it started attacking me." Ken noticed Nami frown at this. "Why did it stop at injuring you, then?" she asked, surprising Ken. "Was it going to?" the woman replied, her voice growing fainter as she started to sway. "It was about to leap, and I thought for sure I was dead, but it never happened. One of our guard dogs managed to pounce on it and kill it just in time, but the poor dog died as a result." "I see," Nami's expression and tone softened. "Sorry, it must have been horrifying. Did you see anything else out of the norm today?" Ken could tell the strength in the woman's hand could feel the strength in the woman's hand begin to loosen as her eyes struggled to stay awake. Shard, the black shard. She toppled over unconscious. Ken and Nami moved her off the road into a hidden spot and then covered the fallen villager with their bedroll. They tucked her in tight to keep her warm. "I worry about leaving her with bandits in the area," he started, and Nami finished his thought. "But the attack on the village is our highest priority. I wish Killian and Fronica were here to watch her." Ken took off the leather jacket and his boiled leather tunic. "Me too. I don't like to leave a helpless person, but she risked her life to get help for her village. We should honor that and see if we can help." Nami paced with her arms crossed. The fact that she was not eyeing his shirtless chest spoke to how worried she was right now. Ken slipped on the undershirt and then the chain shirt over top. Once he had settled the armor into place, he covered it with the leather coat for extra protection. Gammy had often bragged that a wolf's teeth could not punch through her jacket. It seemed it was time to test that claim. "Also, even if we cannot fight off the beast, we have a critical piece of information for the village. The creatures are natural wildlife tainted by evil. And that shard, could it have been the same as the one you found with Jake? Oh, this is Nami talking. Could it be the same one you found with Jacob?" Nami stopped pacing and drew out one of the blue-fletched arrows. Ken placed his pack next to the girl and the shield next to it. "Maybe. I'll know when we find it. I want to use the shield, but against monsters, it's better if I don't. I'm still learning after all. It'll weigh me down." "All right, be careful, though. We don't take any risk. We handle this the way our fathers taught us. I bait them, dodging their charge, and you shoot them." Ken began to walk towards the path. "Sounds like a plan. And promise me," she stopped him with a hand to his chest, "if I call for a retreat, you will run too." Ken reached up and cupped Nami's cheek. "I do if you also promise to run if I say so." "I promise, no matter what happens." He smiled as she leaned in, and their lips met for a brief moment. "Let's go now, let's go, partner." Armed and as ready as they could be, Ken and Nami headed off down the path, ready to help Crimson Lake Village. They did find that brave dog a few yards later. Ken made a note to tell the villagers to see that the dog got a proper burning later. They gave the beast a moment of silence before they set out to hunt the monsters. Each step in the direction of the village drove a spike of tension into Ken's chest. Every small bit of movement in the woods around them caused him to start. Nami had reached over and gripped his hand, which had helped calm him down, but his nerves were still on high alert. Soon they heard they heard howling canines in the distance, and they knew they were close. Nami gave Ken one more reassuring smile before falling back several feet. Ken drew his sword and held it tight in one hand. They continued down the path, and all too soon they came upon their first beast. It was the largest canine Ken had ever seen before. Probably the before it isn't necessary. It was the largest canine Ken had ever seen. Probably sounds better than seen before. I will take that out real quick. Its fur was dark as the night sky, and its eyes were burning a sickly blue. There were there were the teeth, so sharp they made Ken gulp in fear. The beast was chewing on the body of a rabbit it had caught. The poor creature was already more than halfway gone. It looked up as it heard Ken approach, leaving the corpse on the ground. Ken was sure that the creature used to be a coyote. It had the right body shape. He had fought them before, but that had been with a longer spear. He would much rather have that than a sword right now. The beast lowered its center of gravity and charged at him, roaring as it came on. Ken repositioned, knees wide apart and sword held at the ready. As the shadowy canine approached, he pivoted around the beast, which caused it to streak past him. Still, he could feel the force of the creature as it flew by. At that moment, he heard the twang of Nami's string, and the monster roared as an arrow sprouted from its muzzle. Ken heard her curse as the arrow did not find its intended mark. For good measure, Ken brought his sword around and slashed the beast's side before he jumped away again. He took a moment to survey the damage, and what he saw shocked him. The gash in the side and the arrow in the muzzle bled something that wasn't blood. The creature seemed to be leaking the same shadowy substance that coated its fur. Within moments of the arrow landing, Ken saw the arrow dissolve completely. He took a moment while the creature was stunned to check his sword, but to his relief, it seemed to be fine. Not a trace of the shadows clung to it. He snapped his full attention to the monster as it shook off the wounds and turned to face him. Once more it charged at him, but that had been a mistake. With its side exposed to Nami, Ken saw an arrow grow out of its right leg and make it stumble. In quick succession, a second arrow flew to the creature's eye. This caused it to roar out in one final time before collapsing onto its side. The shadows engulfed the entire body, and to Ken's horror, the corpse of the beast and the arrows were gone. He could hear his partner swearing from behind, but she did not move from her spot. It was then he heard more growls and whirled to investigate. Two more shadowy monsters were approaching them. He felt a rising panic, but did his best to push it down. One of them had been fast and had cost Nami 3 of her precious arrows alone. Yeah. Ken, Nami's voice floated to his ear from his flank. Take one of them. I'll distract the other in the meantime. Ken wanted to argue, but he held his tongue as the two dark canines charged at him. He jumped to the left side and slashed at the side of one of the creatures before. Probably don't need to say to the left side and slashed it. To the left and slashed it. He jumped to the left and slashed at the side of one of the creatures before he ran towards the village. He heard the other beast roar and rush off in the other direction. He was sure Nami had got her mark. He wanted to make sure she was all right, but he pushed back this instinct. She would not appreciate it if he got hurt because of his distraction. He sent his prayers to any of the guardians that might be listening to keep her safe. Once he had cleared 30 feet from the beast, he whirled to face it once more. The enraged beast was a lot closer than he expected, and he had to twist his body to avoid the jaws of the creature. The beast lashed a paw at him, the claws larger than normal for a coyote. He felt the paw smack into his jacket. The claw could not break through his leather coat, but the force of the blow almost knocked him off his feet. He gasped in shock as the strength of the monster, but knew this was his chance and launched a counterattack. He threw caution to the wind and launched 3 quick cuts with his sword, gripping the hilt in both hands. The beast avoided the first slash by ducking its head, but the other 2 blows landed. He slashed the monster on the right shoulder and then right across the eyes. The lights faded from the creature's eyes at the slash, and it released a pitiful cry at the pain. Ken felt a twinge in his heart, but he adjusted the grip of his sword and struck the monster's neck. The beast dropped and vanished in a pool of shadows as it died. Ken wished he could take a moment to catch his breath, but he knew Nami would need him. He looked in her direction and found she had climbed into a nearby tree, the beast trying to jump up and grab her. Ken started in that direction, noting the monster had 2 marks on its body where Nami had shot it. 6 arrows went to whatever that shadowy substance was. It was not a good sign if there were more of the creatures. He could see Nami was preparing to lose another shaft, and he picked up the pace. With a shout of defiance, Ken drove the point of his sword right into the creature's bottom. The beast yelped and rushed away from him, gaining some ground. Nami fired as the creature passed, making it once more cry out in pain. It turned and had such a pitiful look. He might have felt pity for it had he not seen the woman earlier. The creature crouched to charge once more as it stopped. There was an axe sprouting from its head. Ken glanced around for the source of the axe and had to reach up and rub his eyes to be sure he was not seeing things. A huge man stepped out of the woods. He was more than 7 feet tall, if not taller, and his body rippled with muscles. He wore leather moccasins and pants, but he was shirtless. Ken could see the large man had scars and muscles across his chest and stomach. He had a full head of bright orange hair and a beard of the same color, and Ken suspected he had never seen a comb. He could not tell what the expression was, but his eyes glowed bright red, showing he belonged to their tribe. Finally, Ken's eyes went to the massive double-headed axe he carried in one hand over his shoulder. Ken was speechless at the appearance of such a commanding figure for a moment. He managed to regain his voice as the large man walked over to the dissolved corpse, which had left an axe blade. Hey, thanks for the help there. What a waste, the man said, with a note of regret in his voice as he picked up the axe blade and stowed it in a massive pouch on his side. He then faced the couple, and Kid could see the man was looking not at them, but in the direction of the village. Help the village now. Speak later, lad, he stated and strolled off towards the village. Ken looked over at Nami, who seemed as stunned in the man's presence as he was. He reached out, and as she had done for him earlier, grounded her with a quick shoulder squeeze. Thanks for that, she smiled and readied another arrow. I was not expecting to meet someone larger than your dad. I know, right? Let's follow him. We need to end this. I'm right behind you, love. Someone has got to pay for making me lose so many arrows. Ken chuckled, and the two of them dashed to try and keep up with the man's long pace. He was starting to feel the strain of using the chain shirt for so long. The weight was getting to him, and he was not sure he could keep dodging. They joined the large figure who had paused outside the entrance to the village. There were 4 more of the beasts roaming around searching for prey in the deserted village. The axe wielder lowered his weapon and went to advance when Ken placed a hand on his arm. Wait, please. We have information on these things you need to hear before we rush in there. An orange brow rose at Ken's words, but the wild man waited, which Ken took as a sign to proceed. We need to find a black shard in the center of the village. It should not be there. I see it, Nami spoke from his left. It's right next to the public meeting tables. Good, the man's voice was soft. Lass, you shoot that crystal. Lad, we distract the beast. Ken agreed, and readied his sword as he heard Nami draw her string. Be careful, Ken. I'll be all right. May Voxus guide your shot. With a nod to the larger man and a wave to his companion, Ken rushed into the village. He spotted the crystal, too, and something bothered him about it, though he couldn't place it. He could see the axe wielder barreling to the left towards 3 beasts. Ken figured he'd better start with the solo one on the right to keep it from ambushing their flanks. Remembering a trick Alistair had taught them both, Ken took his sword and reflected the light of the sun. He aimed the light into the eyes of the shadowy beast. The creature howled as the light hit its eyes, blinded for a moment. He then took his sword in both hands and slashed twice at its front legs. The monster fell forward and was at Ken's mercy. He brought his sword up to finish the beast when there was a twang of a bowstring. Ken glanced over in time to see the crystal shatter. Seeing it break apart made him realize why it looked so familiar. It was identical to the one Jacob had tripped over back in Rootford. The beast at Ken's feet breathed its last, dissolving into a pool of shadows. All it left behind was a discolored spot on the ground. He turned to check on the large man and found him glancing down at 2 other discolored spots. He gulped, realizing that in such a short span, the other guy had cut down 2 of the terrible beasts. The man walked towards him, and a wide grin appeared on his face. Good job, lad. He slapped Ken on the shoulder, knocking him face first to the ground. He moaned and pushed himself into a sitting position. My name's Hugh, the man stated, and then turned to Nami as well. You did well too, Les. Nami appeared in Ken's view and offered her hand to help him up. He took it, and she pulled him to his feet. Thanks. Anytime, Nami replied and turned to Hugh. Thank you, Hugh, for helping us. We were lucky you came along. A wise man said, it is our job to help our fellow man, the tall man responded. It was my pleasure to assist. Ken looked at Nami, who shrugged in response. It was around now that the doors to the village houses started to open, and heads looked out at the three newcomers. A cheer rose up from the houses, and some people were quick to swarm the exhausted heroes. You saved us, thank you, an older man with a beard down to his knees exclaimed. He grabbed Nami's hands and shook them. Ken looked at the two younger men who came up behind the elder. One of your people found my partner and me on the road. She had grave injuries, but she begged us to come and help. You need to get her as soon as you can. We treated her wounds, but she needs an expert to look over her. We stashed her away in the woods. Also, one of your dogs died protecting her. It should get a proper burning. Thank you, one of them responded. We'll go get her right now. And the two started running off towards the road when a large woman came from a door of a big home. You idiots, take supplies and make a stretcher. Sorry, elder. The young man turned back and rushed towards the house the woman had left. The elder shook her head as she approached. She had seemed tall at a distance, but now standing next to Hugh, she looked small. Her hair was graying and had streaks of blonde still. The large man beside Ken grunted and then patted his shoulder much gentler than before. I need to go now, lad. Learn what you can and meet me at my hut. It's 2 miles from here through the forest. Oh, all right, Ken agreed, and Hugh inclined his head at the elder. Ma'am, he said before he turned and strolled away. The elder shook her head. I'll never understand that man, but he is reliable in a pinch. I hope you two are not as shy as he is. She beamed at Nami, and Ken heard her giggle in response. No, we're much more social. Thank the lady. Why don't you go into my home and rest for a bit? We will talk after we see Ove and prepare him for the final rites tonight. Ken felt the sting in his eyes, a reminder that someone had died to those horrible monsters. Nami nodded in consent as she was starting to sway a little. Thank you, we are both a little tired. We will take you up on that. The elder nodded. Good. Go into the house and tell my daughter Aldous that I'm sending you. She will see to it that you are cleaned up and refreshed. I want to give you a proper thank you, but we cannot leave Ove any longer. Of course, Nami replied, her voice soft and sympathetic. We understand. The older man wrapped an arm around the elder. Come on, dear. Ken and Nami walked over to the house that the elder had come out of. Eldest turned out to be in her early 20s and had blonde hair like her mother and was as tall. She saw how tired they looked and set about fetching cider from a large barrel and some bread. After eating, Ken took off the chain shirt and examined the place where the shadowy creature had struck him. He gasped. He found a bruise the size of his hand on his stomach starting to form. He heard Nami gasp as she saw. Ken, what happened? She asked, worry dripping in her voice. One of the beasts got a lucky hit, he groaned as he touched the spot. It doesn't hurt yet, but it didn't hurt yet, but he knew that it would. I hate to think that what would have happened if the jacket and the chain shirt hadn't stopped it. Aldous came over and handed Ken a dock leaf covered in foul-smelling paste. Here, for the swelling. It will not be pleasant, but if you want to move tomorrow, you're going to need it. Ken took the leaf and pressed the stinky plant to his wound, wrapping some of the offered bandages to hold it in place. Thank you. I will handle the stink if it means not hurting so badly. He wrinkled his nose. It did reek. Nami stepped back from him, looking like she was about to gag. Well, you can sleep alone tonight, Smelly. Ken put on his best pout, but he knew Nami too well to think it would work. She had a sensitive sense of smell. He could only imagine how this was affecting her. Let's move outside. You can sit upwind for me. Good plan, Nami agreed, and the two of them headed out to sit at the tables in the center of the village. As advised, Nami set upwind of Ken. He took a moment to look over the villages and or buildings in the village. Now something wasn't trying to kill them. To his pleasure, he saw they resembled Appleshade. Ken wiped away a tear as the image of their village floated in his mind. Soon the rest of the villagers came back, two of them carrying the remains of Ove in a cloth soaked in resin. I see one of you got hurt helping us, the elder nodded to Ken's bandage. It's a bruise, but thank you for your concern. Sorry we didn't get here sooner. Goodness, boy, you couldn't have got arrived any sooner unless you were the guilty party. Ken looked down at his boots. I know you're right, he said after a long moment of pondering, but still, it hurts that he had to die, and we all lived. Ove is off to the next life, the elder said, her voice soothing, patting his hand. We will send him off on the sunset of his journey, but if he were here, he would tell you to be proud of what you did. Now, my name is Tove Applebeer, and I am the elder of this village, and this is my husband, Folkvar. Folkvar, yeah. Kid and Nami shared a look. It was Nami who spoke for them, pulling out the letter of introduction. Well, Elder Applebeer, this is a letter for you from your niece Ingrid Applebeer. Tove raised an eyebrow, but took the letter and read it. I see. You're Ken Hearthstone and Nami Forgewood. The brow climbed higher. A Forgewood and a Hearthstone traveling together and not trying to kill each other. That's not something you see every day. We've heard, Nami responded, her voice dark. We do not share our kin's hatred. Yes, so the leader says. I was a girl when your dads up and ran off together in the middle of the night. I thought your granny, Ken, was going to shatter my eardrums with her screams the next morning. Anyways, forgive my surprise. We are thankful that you heeded Ingrid's request and came to deliver this letter. She wants us to put you up tonight, but we were going to do that anyway, since you saved us and all. Ken grinned. Thank you, ma'am. Ingrid also wanted to tell you that there have been bandits in the area. Yes, in fact, we suspect it was them that planted that shard. Ken's expression hardened. Can you tell us what all you saw? Toe sat down in motion for her husband to follow. Yesterday, some of the kids came into my home and told me that they saw some strange men coming towards the village. We snuck out the back and got a few of the others that were not out on the lake, and we headed back into the village. By the time we got there, the shard was sitting there. It looked so small and fragile, but it was so dark and evil, too. Nami pursed her lips. Is that why you didn't break it? Tove wiped away a tear from the corner of her eye. We were worried that something would happen if we did. We sent a runner to Hartsdale yesterday to fetch a cleric of the Guardians to examine it. But it seems like we could have smashed it after all. Ken frowned and shook his head. No, you made the right call. I'm certain that our village elder would have done the same in your place. If Hugh had not told us to break it, I wouldn't have wanted to touch it. Yeah, but I expect that's what they wanted was what they wanted. Yes. If it would have been pointless to place it if it just got smashed before creating any monsters. I bet they were counting on you not breaking it because it was so odd looking. Ken got up and paced around. He felt like his skin was on fire as anger burned through his chest. This is unforgivable. If it was the bandit lackeys of Bajorn I met in Rootford, we need to tell the Doves about this. They could put a stop to this so-called bandit king. There were 8 of them today. What about tomorrow? Folkvar finally spoke. We worried about the same thing, but we do not have a lot of weapons here, and only a few of us know how to fight if wild beasts or bandits come. This goes beyond petty theft and threats. You know the code of the tribe and what must happen now. Ken did know, only too well. Execution is the fate that awaits the bandits. I do. These were the only words he could manage. He saw Nami give him a small smile, enough to brighten his mood a little. Then Ken and Nami, Elder Applebeer spoke, filling her words with authority. I charge you to carry our message to the Dove camp at Hartsdale. Please ask them to avenge the blood of Crimson Lake Village. Those traitors dared to spill. Nami held her fist to her breast in a firm salute. We promise to carry your message, Elder. Tove's expression softened, and she covered her face in her hands. Thank you both. Also, please make sure Hugh knows how thankful we are for his help when you see him tomorrow. I suspect I know why he wants to speak with you, and I will pray for you. After that, there was not much more to say. Ken could feel the tug of the road in his heart, pointing him towards Hartsdale and their next mission, but it would have to wait a little longer. The entire village gathered around the constructed pyre. Ove's wrapped body sat with reverence in the center of the fire, along with his most prized fishing net. Tove handed Ken and Nami torches wrapped in resin-soaked bandages. They lit the torches at a small fire and stepped forward, tossing the torches onto the pyre. Ove's corpse and the net went up in flames as the people began to chant a prayer to the lady and Ragnus the fire lion. O lady, O lion of fire, please guide this poor soul on his way to the next life. As our people rose from the ashes of the dark wars, so too may his soul rise to be born once more, Tove chanted as the fires did their work. She then faced the villagers and finished her chant. We are the phoenixes. There is no hardship we cannot overcome. The darkness may try to topple us, but we will always spring back. Let us all remember Ove. Without his warning, we would have lost so many more friends today. Everyone, let us drink to his memory. Ken, Nami, Aldous, and some of the younger kids helped pass out the potent beer from the apple beer stores. Once everyone held a mug, they all raised them and chanted, For Ove! And as one, they all drank. That night, despite what she had said earlier, Nami was in Ken's bed, hugging him close. They were both reliving the horror of that day. They had heard the beast howling and recalled the monsters charging at them. They didn't speak at first, drawing comfort from each other and the fact that they were still alive. After a while of lying there, he heard Nami speak, her voice quiet. I was so worried, Ken. He looked down at his partner's small voice. I understand. I was so worried there would be a larger death count. I'm glad that we got here when we did. She pushed herself up so she could stare deep into his white eyes. Yes. While I'm thankful for that, I was also thinking about us, too. Those things killed a grown man, Ken. They would have ripped us to pieces if we had messed up. She broke off as she started crying. Ken leaned in and caught her lips in a soft kiss. The kiss was wet with from her tears, but he didn't care. She curled up into herself and sobbed in relief as they were both still alive. He held her and made gentle circles on her back, though he too felt the pressure of today on his heart. After a while, Ken felt the fear in his partner drain away, and he could tell she was sound asleep. Ken sighed in relief at the sight of his lover relax and calmed him even more. Love you, Nami. Ken kissed her forehead as he whispered to her and soon joined her in sleep. And that was chapter 7. So a little bit rough there. There's a few things that I apparently haven't caught previously. I'll have to go back and take another run through. But I hope you enjoyed the action, and I hope you're looking forward. There's a lot more to come. Chapter 8 will be back with Nami's point of view, and we'll be traveling to Hartsdale. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope to join you next time. Bye.